The sound of an engine, deep, confident, and alive. It doesn't just move a car, it moves a century. That sound belongs to BMW. But before BMW became a symbol of luxury, speed, and precision, it was born from chaos. From a world at war, from ashes of defeat, and from a nation searching for identity. It started not with cars, but with airplanes. Engines that once roared across the skies of a fractured Europe carried a blue and white emblem, a symbol inspired by the spinning propellers of flight and the Bavarian sky. That symbol would one day sit proudly on the front of cars that redefined driving itself. But back then, in the ruins of post-war Germany, survival came before dreams. BMW's story is not one of privilege, it's one of reinvention. When the world demanded wings, BMW built engines that touched the clouds. When the world forbade flight, they turned their gaze to the road. And when the world doubted them, they built machines that made even the skeptics believe again. Few companies have seen the rise and fall of empires the way BMW has. Their history is carved through 2 world wars, a divided nation, near bankruptcy, and rebirth into one of the most iconic automakers on Earth. From aircraft engines to motorcycles, from family sedans to track-bred monsters. BMW's evolution mirrors the evolution of modern Germany itself, disciplined, visionary, and unrelenting in the pursuit of perfection. Today, when a driver presses the start button of a BMW M5 or hears the refined growl of a straight-six engine, they not just starting a car, they reigniting a legacy that began over a century ago. A legacy of men who refused to quit, of engineers who saw beauty in mechanics, of dreamers who believed that driving pleasure wasn't just a slogan, but a philosophy. And yet, behind the glory lies a story of struggle. The kind few dare to tell. A story of how BMW went from the wreckage of war to the pinnacle of performance, of how visionaries like Karl Rapp, Gustav Otto, and later Herbert Quandt shaped destiny from the ruins of despair. This isn't just a company's history. It's a story of survival, a story written in metal, oil, and motion. Because BMW isn't just about making cars. It's about capturing something deeper, the human need to move forward, no matter the odds. To design not just for function, but for feeling. To prove that even in the darkest times, innovation can roar back to life. From the skies of Munich to the circuits of Nürburgring, from the family driveway to the Autobahn, BMW became more than a machine. It became a statement, a promise that the ultimate driving machine wasn't built overnight. It was forged through history. This is the untold story of how one company shaped an entire century of motion. This is BMW. Introduction of BMW. Before BMW became a global emblem of power and precision, its story began with 2 men whose dreams could not be more different, yet would collide to create one of the greatest automotive legacies of all time. One was Carl Friedrich Rapp, an engineer born in 1882 in the quiet town of Ehingen, Germany. Rapp was fascinated by engines long before the world saw their true potential. He believed machines had souls, that they could breathe, roar, and carry humanity beyond its limits. But he was not a businessman, nor a dreamer chasing fame. He was a craftsman, a man devoted to precision. The other was Gustav Otto, the son of Nikolaus Otto, the man who invented the 4-stroke internal combustion engine, the very heartbeat of modern cars. Born into genius, Gustav carried both the burden and the blessing of legacy. He dreamed not of roads, but of skies, to build machines that could touch the clouds his father had once only imagined reaching. Their paths would converge in the city of Munich, a place that was fast becoming a hub of industrial brilliance in the early 1900s. Germany was changing. Innovation was not just encouraged, it was demanded. Engineers were heroes, and the age of machines was dawning. Karl Rapp worked at Flugwerk Deutschland, where he honed his craft designing aircraft engines, but he quickly grew disillusioned with management's lack of ambition. In 1913, he left to form his own company, Rapp Motorenwerke GmbH, a small workshop at the edge of Munich-S Oberwiesenfeld airfield. His goal was simple but audacious, to build aircraft engines powerful enough to redefine aviation. Meanwhile, Gustav Otto was doing something equally daring. He founded Gustav Otto Flugmaschinenfabrik, a company building aircraft for the German military. His planes were innovative, lightweight, and agile, the kind that inspired pilots to believe the sky had no limits. But war changes everything. When World War I erupted in 1914, the world's demand for aircraft engines exploded overnight. Rapp's workshop became a key supplier for the Imperial German Army. But success brought pressure, and cracks began to show. His engines, though ambitious, often suffered from reliability issues. The military grew frustrated. Investors grew restless. Rapp's dream began to falter. At the same time, Otto's company, once celebrated, was drowning in chaos. Wartime demand outpaced his ability to deliver. Overwork and stress took a toll on his health, leading to a nervous breakdown. In 1916, Gustav Otto was forced to sell his company. He left aviation heartbroken, his dream grounded forever. But destiny was quietly reshaping itself. A new player entered the scene, Franz Josef Popp, an Austrian engineer and visionary manager. Popp saw potential where others saw ruin. In 1917, he orchestrated a merger between Rapp Motorenwerke and the remnants of Otto's factory. The new company was christened Bayerische Motorenwerke, the Bavarian Motor Works. It was more than a new name. It was a rebirth. BMW's emblem, a circle divided into blue and white quadrants, symbolized the Bavarian flag and, to many, the spinning propeller of an aircraft. It represented movement, freedom, and the relentless pursuit of perfection. In the early days, BMW focused on what it knew best: aircraft engines. Its first major success was the BMW 3A, a straight-six engine that delivered unmatched power and efficiency at high altitudes. It changed aviation performance forever. Pilots praised its reliability. The German Air Force demanded it in droves. BMW had finally found its wings, but triumph was short-lived. When the war ended in 1918, Germany's defeat came with brutal restrictions. The Treaty of Versailles banned the country from producing aircraft and engines. For BMW, whose entire business revolved around aviation, this was a death sentence. The company that had just begun to soar was suddenly grounded. Factories went silent. Workers were laid off. For Rapp and his team, it was a nightmare, a future without purpose. Rapp himself would quietly leave the company in 1917, disheartened by the pressures of war and industry. The man who had planted the seed of BMW faded into obscurity, while his creation was left to survive in a new world without flight. But BMW's engineers refused to let their skills die. They believed in motion, if not through the sky, then across the land. In 1919, BMW began experimenting with motorcycle engines, pivoting to survive. They started small, designing the M2B15, a compact flat twin engine that would later power the Victoria motorcycle. It was modest, but it kept the lights on. It kept the spirit alive. Then came 1923, a turning point. BMW unveiled its first fully developed motorcycle, the R32. Designed by Max Friz, one of Rapp's former engineers, it featured a horizontally opposed twin-cylinder engine, the Boxer engine, mounted transversely. This design not only revolutionized cooling efficiency, but became a BMW trademark for decades to come. The R32 wasn't just a machine, it was a declaration. BMW had survived. And yet, beneath the roar of progress, the company longed for something greater. They had conquered the skies. They had tamed two wheels. But what they truly wanted was the road. The 1920s were calling, an age of mobility, of roaring engines, and of dreams reborn. The road ahead would be treacherous. New rivals were emerging. Mercedes-Benz, Opel, and Audi were already making waves in the automotive world. But BMW, forged in adversity, was ready. Its founders had faced failure, war, and loss. Yet every setback became part of the blueprint. They had learned to adapt, to evolve, and to dream beyond limits. The world didn't know it yet, but a new chapter in automotive history was about to begin. A chapter that would take BMW from a struggling engine maker to a symbol of engineering supremacy. A chapter that would redefine what it means to drive. This was just the beginning. Chapter 1. Every great company has a chapter the world forgets. A period of struggle, doubt, and near collapse. For BMW, that chapter began the moment the engines fell silent after the First World War. The skies that had once carried their aircraft were now off-limits. The Treaty of Versailles had banned Germany from producing anything related to aviation. For a company born from propellers and flight, it was like cutting off its wings. Factories once filled with the sound of pistons and turbines became echo chambers of uncertainty. Engineers, men who had built engines capable of touching the clouds, suddenly found themselves designing farm tools, pots, pans, brake systems, anything that could keep the doors open and the workforce employed. But within those walls, something deeper was brewing, a stubborn refusal to give up on movement. In 1919, one of BMW's most talented engineers, Max Friz, refused to see the company reduced to a parts supplier. Friz had designed the legendary BMW 3A aircraft engine during the war, an engineering marvel known for its power and efficiency. He believed the company's genius in precision mechanics could still find purpose, even if it no longer flew. So he began to tinker, quietly, obsessively, with designs that could bring BMW's spirit back to life. His experiments focused on small, efficient engines that could power motorcycles or light vehicles. It wasn't glamorous work. These weren't luxury cars or war machines, but they represented something priceless: survival through innovation. BMW's first true attempt to reinvent itself came with the M2B15 engine. It was a modest, 494cc flat-twin, side-valve, air-cooled engine, designed not for BMW motorcycles, but for other manufacturers like Victoria and Helios. It delivered just over 6.5 horsepower, nothing extraordinary, yet it was a spark in the darkness. That engine, simple, efficient, and brilliantly balanced, became the foundation for everything that followed. In 1922, BMW officially relocated its production to a new facility in Munich's Musacherstrasse, near the Oberwiesenfeld airfield. The move symbolized a clean slate, a new beginning. There, surrounded by remnants of its aviation past, BMW would slowly evolve from an engine supplier into a full-fledged vehicle manufacturer. Then, in 1923, it happened, the breakthrough that saved the company. Friz designed BMW's first complete motorcycle, the BMW R32. It was unlike anything the world had seen. Instead of a chain, it used a shaft drive, a clean, efficient system that eliminated messy maintenance and improved reliability. The Boxer engine sat horizontally, giving the bike perfect balance and smooth, cooling airflow. Every element of its design reflected the company's aviation roots: lightweight construction, efficiency, and precision engineering. The R32 wasn't just an innovation, it was a statement of intent. When BMW unveiled it at the Berlin Motor Show in 1923, it wasn't greeted with fanfare. It wasn't the biggest, fastest, or most luxurious machine on display, but what set it apart was its engineering integrity. It was practical, efficient, reliable. It worked flawlessly, every single time, and in that reliability lay BMW's first identity: trust. The R32 became an instant success. Riders praised its stability, mechanics admired its design, and soon it became the foundation of BMW's motorcycle division, a division that still thrives a century later. But the road was not smooth. By the mid-1920s, the German economy was collapsing under the weight of hyperinflation. People carried wheelbarrows of cash just to buy bread. Factories closed daily. Companies disappeared overnight. BMW, though buoyed by the R32's modest success, struggled to survive in an economy where nobody could afford new machines. For years, BMW balanced on the knife's edge between survival and extinction. In 1928, the company made a bold, almost reckless move. To secure its future, BMW acquired a small automobile manufacturer in Eisenach, Thuringia, a company that produced tiny British-licensed Austin 7 cars under the name Dixie. It was a gamble. BMW had never built a car before. The move could have bankrupted them completely, but it was also an opportunity to finally enter the industry that was shaping the world's future. And so, engineers who once crafted aircraft engines now found themselves studying the anatomy of a small, boxy, four-wheeled machine. The Dixie 315, as it was called, was simple, inexpensive, and already proven successful in Britain. BMW didn't just copy it. They refined it, improved tolerances, smoothed the mechanics, enhanced the build quality. The car's performance wasn't revolutionary, but its craftsmanship was. In late 1928, BMW introduced its first-ever automobile, the BMW Dixie 315 DA2. It was the beginning of something extraordinary, but it didn't feel that way then. Many inside the company questioned the move. Why invest in cars during an economic collapse? Why risk everything for an untested idea? But BMW's leaders, guided by Pop's managerial precision and Frizz's engineering brilliance, knew one truth: innovation doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It creates it. The Dixie's launch marked the birth of BMW as an automaker. For the first time, the blue and white roundel appeared on the front of a car. For the first time, Bayerische Motorenwerke wasn't just an engine supplier. It was a manufacturer of complete vehicles. And yet, success was still uncertain. The Dixie didn't make BMW rich. It didn't even dominate the market. But it proved one thing: BMW could build cars. Reliable, well-made cars that reflected the company's obsession with engineering perfection. Every nut, every bolt, every crankshaft in that little car carried the DNA of aviation craftsmanship. The Dixie wasn't flashy, it wasn't powerful, but it was the foundation upon which every future BMW would stand: precision, balance, and mechanical purity. By the dawn of the 1930s, BMW had weathered its first great storm. The war was over. The economy was stabilizing. And for the first time in its history, BMW had three divisions: aircraft engines, still dormant, motorcycles, and now automobiles. It had survived failure, adapted through desperation, and proven that even when grounded, it could still fly, just on different wings. What began as an act of survival had quietly evolved into destiny. The company that once powered the skies was now preparing to conquer the roads. And soon, the world would witness the moment BMW would stop following and start leading. Chapter 2. By the end of the 1920s, BMW had survived what many thought was impossible. It had transformed from a struggling aircraft engine company into a builder of reliable motorcycles and small cars. But survival wasn't enough. Inside the walls of Munich's growing factory, a new hunger was rising. The hunger to create something original, something truly BMW. The Dixie 315 had kept the company alive, but it wasn't theirs. It was a licensed design from Austin, a stepping stone, not a legacy. BMW's engineers wanted more. They wanted a car that carried their DNA: precision, balance, and innovation. So in 1929, the team began work on what would become BMW's first original car, a machine designed from scratch by Bavarian minds for a Bavarian road. That car would be known as the BMW 320. It was an evolution of the Dixie, but more refined in every possible way. The body was stronger, the engine smoother, and the ride far more comfortable. It was the first BMW to use independent front suspension, giving it sharper handling and greater stability. Innovations far ahead of its time for a small German car. For a company born in aviation, the 320 reflected that same obsession with weight distribution, aerodynamics, and efficiency. Every line and curve was deliberate. It wasn't fast, it wasn't luxurious, but it was precise, and for BMW, precision was everything. The early 1930s, however, were not kind to dreamers. The Great Depression had swept through Europe, crippling economies and crushing industries. Car companies disappeared by the dozens. Demand collapsed. Banks failed. Yet somehow, BMW kept moving forward, not by chasing profit, but by chasing progress. The 320 didn't sell in huge numbers, but it proved a crucial point. BMW could design and engineer cars on its own terms. It was no longer a follower. And that small victory gave them confidence to take the next bold leap, building a car that would finally capture attention across Germany. In 1933, BMW introduced the BMW 303. At first glance, it looked modest, a compact six-cylinder sedan designed for the middle class. But beneath its simple appearance, it carried something revolutionary. The 303 was powered by BMW's first inline six-cylinder engine, a smooth, balanced masterpiece that would become the brand's defining heartbeat for generations. That engine configuration, known for its silk-like power delivery and perfect mechanical harmony, would become synonymous with BMW engineering for nearly a century. But the 303 had another first, one that would come to define BMW's face forever. On the front grille, BMW introduced a new design element: two vertical kidney-shaped openings. Elegant, functional, unique. They provided extra airflow to the radiator, but more importantly, they gave BMW an instantly recognizable identity. Even today, every BMW wears that same double-kidney grille, a direct descendant of the 303's design. It was the first time BMW had a face, and with that face, it began to find its voice. The 303 was followed by a series of models that refined its formula: the 309, 315, 319, and 326. Each one was more advanced than the last. Each one carried the confidence of a company finding its rhythm. By the mid-1930s, BMW had gone from building motorcycles and small engines to designing elegant touring cars, vehicles admired for their craftsmanship, agility, and balance. Where Mercedes-Benz represented wealth and status, BMW represented precision and control, the car for those who loved to drive, and that difference mattered. BMW wasn't trying to build cars for kings. It was building cars for drivers. But progress always comes with pain. Behind the polished chrome and growing success lay a harsh truth. BMW's rapid expansion came at a cost. Developing new cars, new engines, and new factories strained finances to the limit. The company was walking a tightrope, one misstep away from collapse. Still, the engineers pressed on. In 1936, they introduced something extraordinary: the BMW 328. A lightweight, aerodynamic roadster designed purely for performance, the 328 was a statement to the world. BMW had arrived. It combined elegance with raw speed, precision with beauty. Its 2.0-liter inline-six engine delivered 80 horsepower, an incredible figure for its time, and its lightweight body made it one of the fastest road cars in Europe. The 328 wasn't just admired, it was worshipped. It dominated at Nürburgring, at Mille Miglia, and across countless European circuits. Drivers marveled at its agility. Mechanics admired its engineering. Rivals feared its precision. And in that car, that perfect balance of art and engineering, BMW's identity crystallized. For the first time, the phrase sheer driving pleasure wasn't just marketing, it was truth. The success of the 328 brought BMW global recognition, but it also attracted the attention of a world on the brink of another war. Germany in the late 1930s was changing rapidly. The government was rearming. Industries were shifting focus back to military production. BMW, like many others, found itself pulled back toward its origins: engines for planes, machinery for war. The very skills that made it great in peacetime would once again serve darker purposes. But before the storm arrived, BMW had done something remarkable. It had built its first identity. It had transformed from a survivor into a creator, from a supplier into a brand. Its cars were no longer just products. They were expressions of philosophy, balance, precision, performance. BMW had found its soul, and soon the world and the war would test that soul in ways it could never imagine. Chapter 3. By the late 1930s, BMW stood at the crossroads of brilliance and brutality. Its cars, the 303, 326, and the legendary 328, had made it a name of precision and prestige. But the world around it was shifting into chaos. Germany was preparing for war, and the skies over Europe were about to become its next battlefield. For BMW, a company born from aviation, the call to arms was both an opportunity and a curse. In 1939, when World War II erupted, BMW's destiny was rewritten overnight. Its elegant roadsters and touring cars vanished from production lines. In their place, aircraft engines, motorcycles for soldiers, and machinery built for the Nazi war machine. The Munich factory became a fortress of industry, roaring with assembly lines, engines, and smoke. What once symbolized freedom and speed now powered destruction. BMW's engineers, who once designed engines for performance and beauty, were now ordered to focus on power, endurance, and war efficiency. The result was the BMW 801, a radial engine used in the infamous Focke-Wulf FW-190 fighter plane, one of the Luftwaffe's most formidable weapons. It was a masterpiece of engineering, compact, durable, and devastatingly effective. But every revolution of that engine came with a moral cost. As the war deepened, BMW's resources were stretched thin. Skilled workers were drafted, factories were bombed. And in their desperation to meet military demands, BMW, like many German manufacturers of the era, resorted to forced labor. Tens of thousands of prisoners, many from concentration camps, were brought into BMW's factories under brutal conditions. They built parts, assembled engines, and toiled endlessly in silence and fear. It is a dark chapter in BMW's history, one the company has since acknowledged with deep remorse. The brand that once symbolized innovation and excellence became, for a time, a cog in a machine of destruction. But even in the midst of war, the spirit of engineering didn't die. Some of BMW's top designers and technicians, quietly, secretly, continued experimenting with radical ideas, jet propulsion, lightweight materials, and aerodynamic designs that seemed to come from another century. In 1944, BMW developed the 003 jet engine, one of the first turbojet engines in history. It was years ahead of its time, so advanced that post-war Allied engineers would later study it to inspire their own jet programs. But the innovation came too late. By 1945, Germany was collapsing. Bombs rained down on Munich, Leipzig, and Eisenach, destroying BMW's factories, reducing years of progress to ashes. When the war finally ended, BMW was left in ruins. Its plants were either destroyed or seized by Allied forces. The U.S. Army occupied Munich. The Soviets took control of the Eisenach factory in eastern Germany. BMW, as a company, was banned from producing motor vehicles, aircraft, or even motorcycles. Its engineers were scattered, its machinery confiscated, its reputation tainted by its wartime role. In the eyes of the world, BMW was finished. There was nothing left but rubble and regret. And yet, something remained. A spark. A stubborn belief that even from destruction, rebirth was possible. In 1945, as the dust settled, a handful of BMW employees returned to the ruins of their factories. They found twisted metal, shattered windows, and the burned remains of engines that would never roar again. But they also found blueprints, ideas, fragments of dreams that hadn't been destroyed. Slowly, quietly, they began to rebuild. Not with engines or cars, but with whatever they could make. Pots, pans, bicycles, and household items. Anything that could be sold to keep the company alive. It was humiliating for a brand once synonymous with speed and luxury to be producing cookware. But survival required humility. Meanwhile, in East Germany at the Eisenach factory, a strange twist of fate unfolded. Under Soviet occupation, production resumed using leftover BMW designs, cars and motorcycles that still bore the BMW badge. But these vehicles weren't authorized by Munich. 2 BMWs now existed, one in the east, one in the west. It was a confusing, fragmented existence, a symbol of a divided nation and a shattered identity. Back in Munich, the official BMW headquarters struggled to find direction. Their license to build vehicles had been revoked until 1948. Many employees had left for other companies. The brand was nearly forgotten. But those who stayed, a small, determined group of engineers and mechanics, believed that one day BMW would return to doing what it did best, building machines that moved the soul. They didn't yet know how or when, but they knew why. BMW was never just about engines or metal. It was about movement, about the joy of driving, of flying, of mastering motion itself. And so, even in those bleak post-war years, they held on to that idea. They stored away old designs. They guarded the company's identity. They waited for a moment to rise again. By 1948, the Allied ban was finally lifted. BMW was allowed to produce motorcycles once more. And with that small permission, the company began its long road to resurrection. The first machine to roll off the line was the BMW R24, a simple single-cylinder motorcycle. But it represented more than a vehicle. It was a heartbeat, the first sign of life after years of silence. For the men and women who had endured the war and its aftermath, the R24 wasn't just a product. It was proof that BMW could live again. From the ashes of war, from guilt and ruin, the company began to find redemption, one engine at a time. But the true test was yet to come. Could BMW ever return to building cars? Could it regain the trust of a world that had watched it fall so far? The answer would come in the 1950s, a decade of daring, of reinvention, and of one small car that would save BMW from extinction. Chapter 4. The war was over. But peace did not bring prosperity. For BMW, peace brought poverty. The company that once built roaring engines for the sky was now grounded, broken, banned, and bankrupt in all but name. Its factories lay in ruins. Its equipment had been dismantled or stolen. Its engineers had scattered across a divided Germany. In the streets of post-war Munich, survival was a daily battle. Germany was a wasteland, bombed-out cities, ration lines, and millions struggling to rebuild. And in that chaos, luxury cars were the last thing anyone needed. But inside the battered remains of BMW's Munich plant, a small group of loyal workers refused to let the dream die. They had nothing, no cars, no engines, no tools. So they started from scratch. In 1948, when the Allied ban lifted, BMW was permitted to build motorcycles again. And with that permission, the company's heart began to beat once more. Their first new product, the BMW R24, was simple, rugged, and affordable. It wasn't glamorous, but it sold. For thousands of Germans rebuilding their lives, the R24 was freedom on 2 wheels. It was a symbol of mobility, of progress. BMW, the once great automaker, had become a motorcycle company. And for a time, that was enough. By the early 1950s, the R24 had evolved into the R51 and R68, faster, more powerful machines that earned BMW respect across Europe. Motorcycles like these reminded the world that the Bavarians still knew how to build greatness, even on a small scale. But deep inside BMW, a question burned. Could they ever build cars again? In 1951, after years of preparation, BMW answered with its first post-war automobile, the BMW 501. It was elegant, luxurious, over-engineered, a car that looked like a moving cathedral, with thick chrome, sweeping lines, and a proud grille that symbolized revival. It was called Der Baroque Angel, the Baroque Angel, but beauty couldn't save it. The 501 was expensive to build and too costly to buy. Post-war Germany was not yet ready for luxury. Then came the BMW 502, more powerful, fitted with a V8 engine and loaded with prestige. It was an engineering marvel, but it only deepened BMW's financial wounds. The company was building masterpieces for a market that no longer existed. While BMW chased dreams of grandeur, Volkswagen was selling affordable Beetles by the millions. By 1955, BMW was running out of money. Production slowed. Suppliers stopped delivering parts. Executives debated shutting down the automobile division entirely. For the first time since its rebirth, BMW faced extinction once again, and that's when salvation arrived, from Italy. In a small workshop near Milan, a company named Isetta had designed something utterly unique, a tiny egg-shaped microcar called the Isetta. It had a front door that swung open like a refrigerator, a single bench seat, and an engine no bigger than a lawnmower's. It was designed for a Europe still recovering from war, cheap, efficient, and built for narrow streets. When BMW engineers saw it, they saw possibility. If they could license and re-engineer the design, perhaps this strange little car could keep BMW alive. So they did. BMW bought the rights, modified the frame, improved the suspension, and fitted it with their own single-cylinder motorcycle engine. In 1955, the BMW Isetta was born. It was tiny, barely over 7 feet long, weighing less than 800 pounds, but it was exactly what post-war Europe needed. It became an instant sensation. In cities where people couldn't afford large cars, the Isetta offered affordable mobility. In a time of fuel shortages, it was brilliantly economical, over 80 miles per gallon. And in a world trying to forget the noise of war, it was cheerful, harmless, even cute. BMW had built fighter engines for war. Now, it built hope on wheels. The Isetta became the symbol of the Wirtschaftswunder, the German economic miracle. Across Europe, people smiled again when they saw a BMW. Not fear, not destruction, joy. Between 1955 and 1962, BMW sold over 160,000 Isettas, enough to pull the company out of financial ruin. It was the car that saved BMW. Without it, the company might have disappeared forever. But the Isetta was more than just a commercial success. It gave BMW something far more valuable: time. Time to plan the next step. Time to dream again. Time to reinvent what BMW stood for. The little bubble car had given birth to a big idea, that BMW could build cars for everyone, not just the wealthy. Behind closed doors, a new generation of engineers began to think beyond survival. They imagined a BMW that was still compact, but faster, sharper, and designed for those who loved driving. It was an idea that would soon lead to one of the most important cars in BMW's history, a car that would define the company's future and shape its DNA forever. The Isetta had saved BMW's life, but the next car would give it a soul. The next car would prove that BMW wasn't just back. It was reborn. Chapter 5. By the late 1950s, BMW was alive, but only barely. The little Isetta had saved the company's balance sheet, but not its reputation. The public saw BMW as a maker of tiny bubble cars and motorcycles, not luxury machines or performance icons. To the executives in Munich, that was unacceptable. BMW wasn't born to build small engines for survival. It was born to build great engines for greatness, but dreams don't pay bills. By 1959, the company was on the brink again. Debt had piled up. Sales of luxury cars like the BMW 502 were weak, and the Isetta, once the symbol of recovery, was beginning to fade from fashion. In December 1959, during a tense shareholder meeting, BMW's board announced something shocking. The company was considering selling itself to Daimler-Benz. For a moment, it looked like BMW would simply vanish into its biggest rival. But in that crowded Munich hall, something extraordinary happened. BMW's workers, dealers, and loyal investors rose in protest. They refused to let their company die. Not again. One man in particular, Herbert Quandt, a quiet but powerful industrialist, stepped forward. Quandt believed BMW could still be saved, but only if it found its true purpose. He invested heavily, taking control of the company and gambling his fortune on a single idea: that BMW could reinvent the modern car, not by imitating Mercedes, but by creating a new category altogether. That idea was called the Neue Klasse, the new class. It wasn't just a car, it was a philosophy. Launched in 1962, the first Neue Klasse model, the BMW 1500, was sleek, modern, and perfectly balanced between sport and practicality. It wasn't as big as a Mercedes, nor as cheap as a Volkswagen. It was something entirely new, a compact sports sedan for drivers who loved performance and everyday usability. For the first time since the 1930s, BMW had found its soul again. The 1500 was designed by Wilhelm Hofmeister, whose clean, elegant lines gave BMW a timeless aesthetic. He introduced a subtle design detail that would become legendary: the Hofmeister kink, that distinctive curve at the base of the rear window, a symbol of strength and motion. Under the hood, the 1500 featured a new generation of four-cylinder engines, light, rev-happy, and full of character. It could reach 100 mm, handle corners with grace, and outdrive cars far more expensive. It was fast. It was functional. It was fun. BMW had finally built a car that made people fall in love with driving again. The Neue Klasse series expanded. 1600, 1800, and 2000 models followed, each refining the formula. And with every new car, BMW's reputation soared. By the mid-1960s, the world began to take notice. Motoring journalists hailed BMW as the driver's car company. The press called the 1800 a car that makes even traffic enjoyable. Sales exploded, factories expanded. For the first time in decades, BMW was not just surviving, it was thriving. And yet, behind this success was something deeper. The Neue Klasse wasn't just about engineering, it was about identity. It defined what BMW would stand for from that moment onward: precision, performance, purity. Every element, from the steering feedback to the suspension geometry, was built around the idea of connection between man and machine. BMW had rediscovered its purpose, and with that confidence came creativity. In 1966, BMW unveiled the 1602, a smaller, sportier evolution of the Neue Klasse. It was lighter, faster, and aimed squarely at young drivers. Then, in 1968, came the car that would seal BMW's destiny forever: the BMW 2002. It was born from a simple idea: take the small 1602 body and drop in a larger 2.0-liter engine. The result was magic. The 2002 wasn't just quick, it was alive. It leapt off the line, carved through corners, and turned every road into a playground. It became the first affordable sports sedan, a car that could take your family to work during the week and dominate a rally on the weekend. Reviewers were stunned. Car and Driver called it the best handling sedan in the world. The 2002 didn't just sell, it started a movement. In America, it created an entirely new fan base. Young enthusiasts, tired of heavy Detroit cruisers, fell in love with the nimble little BMW. It was pure driving distilled into metal, compact, balanced, and thrilling. For the first time, BMW had conquered the American market. The company's U.S. sales skyrocketed. And with that success, BMW became more than a brand. It became a lifestyle. The 2002 defined what every BMW would strive to be: a car that feels alive under your hands. It was the spiritual ancestor of every 3 Series, every M car, every driving experience that followed. By the end of the 1960s, BMW had gone from the brink of collapse to the peak of admiration. The Isetta had saved its body, but the Neue Klasse, and especially the 2002, had saved its soul. The company's new slogan captured it perfectly: Aus Freude am Fahren, for the joy of driving. And for the next 50 years, that joy would define everything BMW touched. But success invites ambition, and ambition always leads to evolution. The 1970s would bring a new era of performance, prestige, and power. From this foundation would rise the most iconic series in BMW's history, the one that turned the brand into a global legend. The world was about to meet a new kind of BMW, sharper, faster, more sophisticated than anything before. The era of the modern BMW had begun. Chapter 6. By the dawn of the 1970s, BMW was no longer a company on the brink. It was a company on a mission. The Neue Klasse cars had rebuilt its reputation, but something deeper had changed. BMW had found its voice, and it was ready to roar. The world was moving fast. Technology, culture, and competition were all accelerating. And BMW was determined not just to keep up, but to lead. In 1972, that ambition took form in a sleek, elegant new machine, the BMW 5 Series. It was the first model of BMW's new naming structure: logical, clean, and timeless. The 5 stood for the series, and the numbers that followed indicated the engine size. It was German order applied to emotion. But the 5 Series wasn't just a sedan. It was a statement, the perfect blend of comfort, performance, and design. It defined the modern sports sedan, a car that could satisfy both executives and enthusiasts. BMW had found its formula: luxury that moves, power with purpose, elegance built for the driver. Just 2 years later, BMW doubled down with something even smaller and sportier, the BMW 3 Series. Launched in 1975, the 3 Series became the purest expression of BMW's DNA. Compact, agile, rear-wheel drive. It was built around balance. From the first moment you turned the wheel, it felt alive. The 3 Series didn't just sell cars, it created believers. It turned driving from necessity into emotion, from transportation into experience. Across Europe and America, enthusiasts began to whisper a new phrase: the ultimate driving machine, and BMW leaned into it. That slogan became their global promise, a commitment to the craft of driving like no other automaker dared to make. But while the 3 Series captured the spirit, BMW had greater ambitions. It wanted to challenge the giants, Mercedes, Jaguar, even Ferrari, not just on the road but on the track. So in 1972, the same year as the 5 Series launch, BMW created something new, a division dedicated purely to performance. It was called BMW Motorsport GmbH. Its mission was simple: to take BMW's engineering excellence and push it to the absolute limit. Race cars, super sedans, machines born to dominate. Their first project was the BMW 3.0 CSL. Lightweight, aggressive, and aerodynamically wild, it was nicknamed the Batmobile. It wasn't just a car, it was a weapon for the track. The CSL won race after race in European touring car championships, carving BMW's name into motorsport legend. Its success transformed the company's image. From luxury maker to performance powerhouse, BMW had proven that its cars didn't just look good, they could win. And out of that spirit, a new badge was born, a simple letter that would change automotive history. M. The M stood for motorsport. But soon, it would stand for something far greater. In 1978, BMW unveiled its first true supercar, the BMW M1. It was unlike anything the company had ever built. A mid-engined masterpiece, sculpted by Giorgetto Giugiaro, powered by a snarling straight-six. The M1 was built to take on Porsche and Ferrari. And it did with stunning precision. Although production was limited, its legacy was immense. The M1 was the blueprint for every M car that followed, machines that combined racing technology with everyday usability. Then came the 1980s, BMW's golden decade. The 3 Series evolved into the E30, a car that became a global phenomenon. Sleek, sharp, and endlessly engaging, it was everything a driver's car should be. And then came its most legendary form, the BMW M3. Born for Group A racing, the M3 took the E30 chassis and transformed it into a precision weapon. Flared arches, high-revving engine, razor-sharp handling. It dominated touring car championships across the world. From DTM to BTCC, it was raw, focused, and utterly intoxicating. The M3 became more than a car. It was an icon. A symbol of performance perfection. The car every enthusiast dreamed of driving. Meanwhile, BMW was expanding in every direction. In 1977, it had introduced the 7 Series, a new flagship of luxury and innovation. It offered refined power, advanced technology, and executive comfort, all while maintaining that unmistakable BMW soul. The lineup was now complete: the 3 for sport, the 5 for balance, the 7 for luxury. BMW wasn't just building cars anymore, it was building an empire. In America, the brand's popularity exploded. Young professionals and driving enthusiasts embraced BMW as a symbol of taste and ambition. Owning a BMW wasn't just about transportation, it was about identity. Every advertisement, every slogan, every rev of the engine reinforced a single truth. BMW was the driver's brand, and yet even in success, BMW refused to sit still. It continued to innovate, from electronic fuel injection to the first onboard computer systems, from aerodynamic bodywork to near-perfect weight balance. Behind the scenes, the M division kept pushing the limits, developing high-performance versions of the 5 and 6 Series, including the M5 and M6, both combining comfort and ferocity in one breathtaking package. The 1980s ended with BMW standing taller than ever before. It had survived wars, near bankruptcy, and reinvention. And now, it was a global force. Its cars were no longer just machines. They were experiences, emotional extensions of the driver. To drive a BMW was to feel something mechanical, visceral, human. Every gear change, every turn of the wheel, every roar of the inline 6 reminded you why BMW existed in the first place: to connect man and machine in perfect harmony. As the 1990s approached, BMW stood at the peak of performance. But its engineers weren't satisfied. They wanted to go faster, think smarter, build bolder. And in the decades that followed, BMW would push into new territories: super sedans, V12 engines, SUVs, and hybrid technologies, all while protecting the legacy that had brought it this far. From a bombed-out factory in Munich to racetracks, boardrooms, and highways across the world, BMW had become more than a car company. It had become a symbol of driving itself. Chapter 7. By the early 1990s, BMW had evolved into something extraordinary. It was no longer just a car manufacturer. It was a symbol of aspiration. Across the globe, 3 letters had become shorthand for passion, precision, and power. B, M, W. And behind that badge, something special was happening. The engineers in Munich weren't simply designing cars, they were sculpting experiences. Each model was a fusion of art and engineering, a machine that spoke directly to the soul of anyone who loved driving. This was the era of legends. It began with one of the most celebrated engines in automotive history, the S14, the heart of the BMW M3 E30. Lightweight, perfectly balanced, and eager to rev beyond imagination, it defined a generation of motorsport dominance. From DTM circuits to rally stages, the M3 E30 didn't just win. It rewrote what a road car could do. It became a cult symbol, a poster car that inspired teenagers, racers, and dreamers alike. But BMW didn't stop there. In the shadows of its racing triumphs, the company embarked on one of its most ambitious collaborations ever, one that would link BMW to one of the greatest cars in human history. In the mid-1990s, a small British team led by visionary designer Gordon Murray was building a car unlike any other, the McLaren F1. They needed an engine that was light, powerful, and perfectly balanced. No turbochargers, no gimmicks, just pure mechanical perfection. And there was only one company that could deliver it, BMW. The result was the BMW S72 V12 engine, a 6.1-liter masterpiece producing 627 horsepower, naturally aspirated, hand-built, gloriously over-engineered. That engine didn't just power the McLaren F1, it made it the fastest car in the world, 240 miles per hour, a record that stood for more than a decade. BMW had proven it could build the heart of a legend, even for others. Back home, BMW's own lineup was thriving. The M5 had evolved into a new monster, a luxury sedan with the soul of a race car. The E34 M5, hand-built and powered by a straight-six engine that screamed to redline, was a masterpiece of balance and brutality. It wasn't flashy, it didn't shout, it just delivered. Then came the E39 M5, a car that many still call the greatest sports sedan ever made. Under its hood roared a 5.0-liter V8, sending 400 horsepower to the rear wheels. It was the perfect contradiction, a family car that could outpace Ferraris, smooth, refined, and devastatingly fast. When you drove it, you didn't just feel power. You felt presence. The steering weight, the balance, the precision, everything was crafted for the driver. In a world chasing automation and luxury, BMW was still building machines for people who loved driving, and then came a new chapter, one that would divide purists, but define the future. In 1999, BMW launched the X5, its first-ever SUV. To some, it felt like betrayal. BMW, the company of sports sedans making a tall family car? But BMW called it something else. A sports activity vehicle, and they were right. The X5 wasn't just an SUV, it was an evolution of performance, space, and technology. It drove like a BMW, handled like a sports car, and changed the luxury SUV game forever. By the early 2000s, BMW was unstoppable. The E46 M3 became the new benchmark. Its S54 straight-six engine revving to 8,000 RPM, paired with perfect weight distribution. It was raw, emotional, and alive. A pure driver's car, modern, yet timeless. Every gear shift felt mechanical, every corner electric. It wasn't just transportation, it was connection. The M3 became a dream, a symbol of freedom. In movies, music videos, and garages around the world, the M3 was the car that said, "I've made it, but I still love to drive." BMW had turned driving into culture. And the brand S slogan, "The ultimate driving machine," wasn't a T marketing anymore. It was truth. As the new millennium unfolded, BMW began experimenting with bold ideas. The E60 M5 arrived with a 5.0-liter V10 engine, derived from Formula One technology. 10 cylinders, 8,200 RPM. The sound alone was unholy. It was a business sedan that roared like a supercar. A car so fast it scared even seasoned journalists. It was BMW's wild side unleashed. But behind the thunder, BMW was also thinking ahead, about sustainability, design, and the future of mobility. The world was changing. Environmental awareness was growing. And BMW didn't want to be left behind. So they began investing in hybrid and electric technologies, not as gimmicks, but as part of their engineering evolution. In 2008, the BMW i division was born. Its mission, to reinvent driving for a new era. The result was the futuristic BMW i8. It looked like it came from another planet. Butterfly doors, sculpted carbon fiber body, and a hybrid drivetrain that blended electric silence with turbocharged excitement. It wasn't the fastest car BMW ever made, but it was one of the most beautiful. The i8 became a symbol of modern innovation, proof that sustainability and emotion could coexist. At the same time, the M division kept producing monsters. The M2, small but savage. The M3 and M4, sharper than ever. And the M8, a grand tourer that mixed elegance with unrelenting force. Each carried the DNA of those early race cars, the purity of balance, the joy of control. From racetracks to skyscraper-lined city streets, BMW had mastered the art of building cars that made you feel alive. Every generation had its hero, the E30, E39, E46, E92, and now the G-Series machines. All connected by one simple philosophy. Driving isn't about getting somewhere, it's about feeling something. And even as the automotive world races toward electrification and automation, BMW's core remains the same. Machines may evolve, engines may fade into silence, but the soul of driving, that heartbeat between human and machine, still beats strongest under 3 letters, B-M-W. Chapter 8. In the 21st century, the sound of the world began to change. Engines grew quieter, streets became cleaner, and for the first time in over a century, humanity started to question the very thing that had powered its progress, the internal combustion engine. For BMW, a company built on performance and precision, this was not just a challenge, it was an identity crisis. The question wasn't just how to adapt, it was what would BMW become in a world without the growl of a straight 6 or the scream of a V10? Would the ultimate driving machine survive the silence? The answer came in electric form. BMW had already laid the groundwork with the visionary I division, a department that dared to imagine what driving could look like in the future. The BMW i3 arrived first in 2013, a compact, fully electric city car made from carbon fiber and recycled materials. It looked nothing like a traditional BMW. It didn't roar, it whispered. But beneath its futuristic design was the same DNA: innovation, engineering excellence, and attention to detail. The i3 wasn't meant to be a bestseller. It was a statement, a declaration that BMW was thinking beyond gasoline. Then came its futuristic sibling, the BMW i8, part electric, part gasoline, all beautiful. Its scissor doors opened like wings. Its LED lines glowed like a spacecraft. The i8 wasn't just a car, it was an icon of modern design. But while the i8 symbolized progress, BMW knew one thing: passion couldn't die in the name of technology. The world might go electric, but it still had to feel like BMW. So the engineers in Munich asked themselves, how do you electrify emotion? The answer arrived with a new generation, the BMW i4 and i7. The i4, sleek and elegant, was the company's first true electric sports sedan, proof that sustainability could still make your pulse race. Underneath its aerodynamic body, instant torque replaced revs, silence replaced sound. Yet somehow it still felt like a BMW. The steering was alive, the balance perfect. It didn't roar, but it moved you. Then came the BMW i7, a flagship electric luxury sedan that redefined comfort and technology. Inside, a cinematic 31-inch theater screen dropped from the roof. Ambient lighting flowed through the cabin like music. It wasn't just a car, it was an experience. Every detail spoke to the future of luxury mobility. Every curve, every sound, every scent inside the cabin was designed to remind you. This is what innovation feels like. But while BMW pushed forward into electric mobility, it also faced something else, a design rebellion. Around 2020, the company began to rethink its iconic front grille, the kidney grille that had defined its face for nearly a century. On cars like the i4, iX, and XM, the grille grew massive, bolder, more polarizing. Fans were divided. Some loved it, calling it futuristic and brave. Others hated it, calling it the end of elegance. but BMW stood firm. Because the brand's history had always been about one thing: evolution through courage. And so the grille became a statement. You don't stay iconic by staying safe. Then came one of BMW's most radical creations, the BMW XM, a plug-in hybrid SUV built entirely by the M division. Yes, the same M that gave the world the E30 M3 and the M5. The XM was powerful, unapologetic, and controversial, blending luxury and aggression in a way only BMW dared to. It was heavy, it was hybrid, it was outrageous. But beneath the controversy was something familiar: ambition. Because BMW wasn't following the future, it was shaping it. As electrification accelerated, BMW introduced the Neue Klasse concept, a name echoing its past, yet designed for the next century. A line of fully electric models inspired by the 1960s revolution that once saved the company. The message was poetic. The car that once created BMW's identity would now reinvent it again. The new Neue Klasse promises more than just zero emissions. It's a promise of emotion, digital craftsmanship powered by heart, not just code. Beneath the surface, BMW is also building something invisible: connection. Every modern BMW is now a digital companion, learning your habits, predicting your routes, and adapting to your world. Through voice, touch, or gesture, the car understands you. Yet even in this sea of data, one thing remains beautifully analog: the feeling. The driver's seat still hugs you like an old friend. The steering still whispers secrets through your fingertips. The spirit of the E30 and the M5 still lingers, just electrified. BMW's evolution isn't about abandoning the past. It's about translating it from sound to silence, from gasoline to electrons, from analog to digital. And as the automotive world races toward autonomy, BMW continues to champion the human connection. Because at its core, BMW isn't about machines. It's about moments. The moment you turn the wheel and feel balance. The moment the road opens and the car becomes an extension of your soul. The moment you realize driving isn't transportation, it's emotion. From the first aircraft engines to the i7 gliding through the night, BMW's story has always been the same: innovation with soul, engineering with emotion, and a relentless pursuit of driving joy. In an age where cars drive themselves and engines whisper in silence, BMW stands at a crossroads, not between past and future, but between machine and humanity. And maybe that's the true definition of the ultimate driving machine. Not a slogan, not a tagline, but a philosophy, timeless, tireless, and forever evolving. Because no matter what powers it, gasoline, hybrid, or electric, a BMW will always have one thing that technology can't replace: a heart. Final thoughts. There's a sound, faint, mechanical, eternal. It's the heartbeat of an engine, a rhythm that has echoed for over a century, a rhythm that began not in a factory, but in a dream. BMW's story isn't just about machines, it's about motion. From the skies above Munich to the racetracks of the world, it's a story of men and women who refuse to accept limits. Every screw, every piston, every curve of every car they built carries that same whisper: we can do better. When Karl Rapp first tuned his airplane engines in a dimly lit workshop in 1913, he couldn't have imagined what he was starting. He could not have known that his pursuit of perfection would someday shape not just transportation, but emotion itself. Through war, destruction, and rebirth, BMW became something greater than a car company. It became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that greatness isn't born in comfort, it's forged in chaos. When the world took away BMW's wings, it learned to build wheels. When those wheels stopped turning, it built motorcycles. When even that failed, it built the tiniest car imaginable, the Isetta, and from that humble bubble, it rebuilt an empire. Each chapter of BMW's history is a mirror of humanity's own evolution: daring, flawed, unstoppable. In the 1960s, the Neue Klasse resurrected the company with elegance and power. In the 1970s, the M division turned engineering into art. In the 1980s and 90s, legends like the E30 M3 and E39 M5 defined a generation. And today, the i4, i7, and Neue Klasse EVs carry that same DNA into the digital age. Because BMW has never just built cars, it has built experiences. The thrill of a perfect apex, the hum of an inline-six on an empty morning road, the quiet satisfaction of a machine that feels alive in your hands. Ask any BMW driver, they'll tell you. It's not about getting somewhere, it's about feeling something. That feeling, that bond between driver and machine, is what separates BMW from the rest. It's not nostalgia, it's not marketing, it's philosophy. The world may change, engines may fade into silence, cars may drive themselves. But that feeling, the one that starts deep in your chest the moment you press the start button, will never go away. That is the true legacy of BMW. It's a company that's fallen, rebuilt, and risen more than once. It's a story written in oil and electricity, in triumphs and breakdowns, in courage and innovation. A story of a brand that turned survival into style and speed into soul. In a world of automation, BMW remains human. It reminds us that even the most advanced machine can still have heart. Every line of design, every engineering decision, every curve of the bodywork tells us that BMW isn't just chasing the future, it's shaping it. Because for BMW, progress isn't about losing the past. It's about evolving it. From the propeller that symbolized flight, to the grills that defined decades, to the silent hum of electric motion, every sound BMW makes is a reminder. Innovation is not the enemy of tradition. It's the continuation of it. The name Bayerische Motorenwerke, Bavarian Motor Works, has become something larger than its origin. It's a promise, a bond between driver and destiny, a pursuit of perfection that never truly ends. Because perfection for BMW isn't a destination, it's a journey. And maybe that's why, after more than a century, the brand still feels young. Because BMW doesn't grow old, it evolves. With every revolution of the wheel, it writes a new verse in a symphony that began more than 100 years ago. A symphony of engineering and emotion, of power and poetry, of speed and silence. So the next time you see those twin kidney grills in your rearview mirror, remember what they stand for. They're not just a design, they're history, they're ambition. They everything that brought us here. From the roar of the first aircraft engine to the whisper of the electric future. Because the world doesn't need another car brand. It needs a reason to feel again. And for over a century, BMW has given us exactly that. The road ahead is changing, but one truth remains timeless. As long as there are roads, there will be drivers. And as long as there are drivers, there will be BMW. BMW, the ultimate driving machine.